Good evening, ladies. Welcome to Lev Mekudesh, our renewed heart, our new moon study. We're getting ready for Adar 2, our second Adar, if you are in the traditional calendar. If you're in a later calendar, you're just now entering into Adar. So we're going to we talked a little bit about that last month when we kind of did an open discussion about the leap year and things like that. But I am going to go back and cover that 12 and 13. So some of us are coming into the 12th month and some are going into the 13th month. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started with a prayer. So let us pray. Father, we just give you thanks and praise for all that you do. You've brought us here together, Father. I pray that you are in the midst of the technology, in the midst of our time, in the midst of any discussion that we have, Father. We just love you and praise you. We are just looking so forward to the things that you have to show us at the end of one season and the beginning of another, Father. So just renew this time, renew our minds, renew our hearts, Father. Always we just come before you, just jumping with joy, rejoicing with praise ever on our lips, Father. Hallelujah and amen. So again, I'm glad everybody is here. And like I said, most of us are in the leap year in the Adar 2, getting ready to enter, which is exciting because we have Purim coming up. And so I'll talk about that a little bit later too, but just make sure that if you are able, register for the Purim celebration that they're going to be doing on March 16th through the Rooted Cafe. That's going to be exciting. Usually I work doubles on Wednesdays, so I have that Wednesday off. So I'm going to host a little watch party. And so I look forward to going through that and all of the fun things they have planned for us. I have no idea anything except for, like, I know Debbie's doing the oil, so I'm excited. I can't wait. I think it'll be a really fun time. So I'm looking forward to it and celebrating with the food and the ladies and the dressing up. Hopefully it'll be a good time for everybody. So I just want to give a couple things too. As we're coming into that, I have just a couple things that this is David Foreman's The Queen You Thought You Knew. He's great resource. So many layers to the story of Purim. It's so, like, we just think Esther, so it's Esther, and it's so much more. We're going to talk about that. Like, I'm just going to scratch the surface because I am by no means an expert on Purim and the story of Esther and all of those layers, but I have enjoyed so much reading what he had to offer and how that connected to the story of Joseph and Saul and all of those different things. You're like, how on earth does that connect here and there? That's what I think whenever he starts off on his trails. And then by the end, you're like, that was so amazing. And then the other book is, of course, Valerie Moody's book. She has a section in here on Purim, and hers is not just like a small overview. She gives like a really good in-depth story, or a little more in-depth look at it too than what you might find just in some of the other feast books. And so I just want to plug that, have that opportunity to read those things as you're preparing for that. And so I just bought, so for myself, I just bought, so a Megillah is what they read at Purim. And so I just bought on Amazon. I've got a copy of one. It was just, I think it was like $6-9. And then I also have my little scroll here, and you can get these in different styles. And it's got like pictures, and it has the Hebrew writing. This is supposed to have English somewhere. I haven't unrolled it. I actually just pulled it out of my mailbox right as I was on my way here. So those are just a couple of things I wanted to share with you. So as you're getting ready for Purim, there might be some different things you can start reading and praying about, because as we go into these months, the whole idea of keeping his calendar is that prayer focus that he gives us, things to be aware of, things we're going to talk about tonight, identity, things hidden being revealed, generational things. So there's all of these things that that we deal with all the time, and lots of times those line up with his calendar, and so it brings it to our attention. And he kind of does that, like he'll do that with like certain words, certain numbers, certain whatever it is, whether it's through dreams, whether it's just stuff you see. Maybe it's someone you talk to and this person just talked about that and this person just talked about that. They don't even know each other, but they're both telling me the same thing. So it's all about that mindfulness and paying attention to those things. So I'm super excited about what he has as we are ending one year and beginning anew. And so it's that, I don't know, I get that kind of giddiness. I think we all talk, like we'll talk about that a little bit too tonight. It's just kind of that antsiness this time of year. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. I'm going to put you guys in little form so I can see as much as possible. So if you need anything, you can put it in the chat there. Charlie will see it. I'll try to take a breath. I know I can be a fast talker sometimes. A lot of times that's just nerves or excitement, just getting things through. So I'm going to move you guys around and present. Lev Mekudash, the renewed heart. I think everybody should have that down by now, what that means. And so we are ready to be celebrating this weekend, sighting the new moon. I hope it's clear. Adar II, the joy of Yahweh is my strength. That's believe Nehemiah 8:1. And I was just reading Charlie's post earlier, or email that she had sent out, and she had included that in reading it in Christine Vallis's book on the appointed times. And I just love that, because that is the core of what this month is all about. All the things that we go through, all of the wrestling you'll see here, some binding that happens or has happened to us. We're going to see that we can find strength in those things. So I'm just going to give a plug for my sweet little girl, Jessie, here in the corner. She's my joyful child there. I showed her that I put her in there. She was like, great, Mom. She is not that age anymore. She is now 12, almost 13. So perfect for our 12 and 13th month. So these are some of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight. So Adar 1 and 2. So all of these themes that we had last month that we just kind of skimmed the surface on are all still there. So we've just had a pregnant year, they call it. We've had extra time. We've had extra kind of that blessing time to kind of ruminate on those themes that he's given us, especially, the joy. So I just pray that you have been able to really just kind of soak in that. Adar meaning is uncertain, but it is connected to Adir, ADIR, which is a strength or happiness, or a strength, excuse me. But they kind of associate with strength, happiness, rejoicing. The sages say when Adar begins, joy enters. So like declare that whenever you are sighting the new moon this weekend, declare it every day, because sometimes that's when we need it the most. Sometimes it can be hard. And so just declare that when Adar begins, joy enters. Father, help me find that joy. I want to soak in that joy. Most of our themes are directly associated with Esther, that joy of overcoming the enemy's plan, the celebration that came with that, the food, those things, charity, all of these things that we're talking about, they associate those with Esther. the leap year, pregnant year, we just talked about that. Double opportunity of joy, extra time to kind of process through what we've been kind of sitting in through the winter, that work that's been happening, those deep down roots, getting our soil ready, pulling out what needed to pull out, all of those types of things. We've had that kind of extra time in this leap year to kind of sit in that and really process through the things we need to process, so that we can trade sorrows for joy, so that we can give to the poor with that generous eye, so that we can find strength. And what has he been revealing over these winter months? Excuse me. He's revealing the true identity and who he has created us to be. And that's an important theme for this next month. Some of our numbers and themes, we've got 12. Of course, 12 is one of those big numbers in the Bible that we automatically can think of. We've got our 12 tribes and 12 gates, and these ideas of 12 years, when we see the woman with the blood issue for 12 years and the 12-year-old who was healed. Yeshua was 12 when he was lost to his parents and was found in his father's house. So there's this idea of like perfect order and division. We can divide things up, which is even in our physical mathematical world, the Father has created, he's done that. So we've got our 12 hours or 12 months. I'm sorry, I have a little tickle in my throat, guys. And then our 13 is one of those, like at first, like 13, I don't know, what do you think of 13? But it has to do with a unity and covenant. It's relational. 13 is ahava, which is our word for love. The gematria for that is 13. And the word for unity, ehad, is 13. And I don't think that there's any coincidence. Coincidence is not a kosher word, my husband says all the time. So 13 is when a youth becomes, they have their bar or bat mitzvah, so they become a son or daughter of the commandments. And what's interesting, we just read this, these last couple Torah portions about Aholiab, and I'm going to mess up the I can't do it. So you know who I'm talking about. So those two guys, Midrash says that they could have been 13. That's the Midrash puts them at 13. And then until this year, or a couple years ago, never thought of the apostles, any of the apostles being like not adults, or what we would consider adults, right? We know Peter was married. To me, they were, these older guys like we see in Chosen, right? Maybe young guys, but not young. But some say that John was 13, the Apostle John, that he would have been around that age. And so that is just really eye-opening to me, that in this different culture that we live in, the idea of someone being 13 and being in charge of so much, it was a totally different time and a totally different environment and culture that they were reared in and brought up in, and that this was a time to begin to step out and make your way, so to speak. So I just find that just fascinating when with that time frame, 13. And then the 12 tribes, we link them together because there's 13 tribes if we replace Joseph with Ephraim and Manasseh. So we've got our 12 and 13 right there. Again, themes hidden will be revealed. Or forward motion into spring, new life beginning. And that's what I was talking about a while ago, is that you kind of get this antsiness, right? We've been kind of maybe, if you live in the northern states anyway, you're kind of, cooped up into the winter in your house. You're cooking, maybe you've gained some weight, maybe you're a little fluffy around the middle, like I feel at the end of every winter season, And so right today, it's been a beautiful day here. We were in, I think it was 45 when I came here, and that's at 5:30 at night where I'm at. So we've got these days coming. We got 60 something coming this week. So you start feeling that antsiness, right? You want to be outside. People get antsy to get their hands in their garden or dirt, or just to be out walking the dog and things like that. So it's just, we're looking for the robin. We're looking for that first flowers and those first sprigs of green. And it's just this exciting time right now. We can feel it physically, what is happening in nature. I think we feel it in ourselves. And again, we're overcoming, trading our sorrows for joy. Those who deal with the seasonal affective disorder, where they kind of go into like a slight depression, sometimes more severe than others. This is a time that they can almost feel it, where they're coming out of that and they are trading that sorrow for joy because they know what's coming. They're able to see kind of the end to the winter. Our tribe for this month is Naphtali, which means to wrestle. And their emblem was a deer, and we'll be reading those in a minute, a deer or a hind. So this idea to wrestle, I think, is really interesting, because I think it's kind of more important to kind of focus on that than just give it this quick, like Naphtali means to wrestle. So I want to, if we think about Naphtali and we think about, his family, we think about his mom was Bilhah, who was Rachel's maidservant. And so when he was born, Rachel said, I wrestled with my sister, right? Of course, this seems like a great connection to Jacob and Esau, because Jacob also had to go through wrestling. And during that that night when he wrestled with the man, God, the angel, whoever, everybody kind of has a different take on who it is. He did say when he sees his brother, that he saw the one who looked like him. So there's, some people say like maybe it was his guardian angel. Maybe it was just how physical was it? I'm not going to get into any of that. But my point is that Jacob had to wrestle with his brother, right? He kind of had to wrestle with who he was in relation to his brother. He had to wrestle with the things that happened between him and his brother and his parents. And so I think that Rachel had that own set with her. And there's midrash that Leah was supposed to marry Esau, that Rachel and Leah were twins. So, we don't know this for sure, but midrash kind of states it. And it really, it seems to line up. It makes sense to me. But either way, sisters who wrestled and that, Leah struggled because one, either Esau did not want her and had already married, never came to get her, never sought her out, or two, she was afraid he was going to come, and that, they talk about the weak eyes, whether she, crying, whether, sad, whatever it may be. Maybe she heard of the type of man he was, and she did not want that type of man. She wanted a man of the tents, a man who knew Torah, who was righteous. And so I think that's so interesting to have those two wrestling takes in both Jacob and Esau, and Rachel and Leah, and seeing that in my own self, like wrestling, right, with those inner things that we have to wrestle with. And sometimes it's almost like you're wrestling with, maybe it was a sibling, maybe it was someone in your family, maybe, it is with yourself, right? Because Jacob and Esau kind of give us that image of the beast nature versus, the beast and the man ruling over the beast, or the spirit, right? putting the spirit above the nefesh, the beastly things, the soulish things. And so there's just so many things right there that we could just sit in and talk about, and just being aware of that wrestling that might be taking place right now, or has been taking place over these winter months. And maybe it's now time to like begin to put it to rest, because I think that's what Rachel did. She's like, I've wrestled with my sister, and I feel like this is a time, and I think there's some midrash commentary or something like that about that it was like, we're done arguing over this. Let's be done. What else can we do? How far can we take this? So that's just a little bit on that wrestling there. His blessings, Genesis 49:21. And Jacob said to Naphtali is a deer, or a hind is the other word. Let loose. He uses beautiful words. And I have these scriptures. I could not print them out, of course, because my printer decided to act silly. So just one second. But this let loose, I think, is something too that is going to be interesting, that we're going to talk about. But Habakkuk 3:19. Actually, I'm going to start at 17. Though the fig tree does not bud, and there are no grapes on the vines, though the olive crop fails, and the fields produce no food, though there are no sheep in the pen and no cattle in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in Yahweh. I will be joyful in God my Savior. The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer. He enables me to tread on the heights. And Psalm 18:33, he makes my feet like the feet of a deer. He causes me to stand on the heights. That's almost word for word. And then Isaiah 9:1-2 has a little bit of a prophetic talk here about Naphtali in that region. It says, nevertheless, there will be no more gloom for those who are in distress. In the past, he humbled the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, but in the future, he will honor Galilee of the nations by the way of the sea beyond the Jordan. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the deep darkness, a light was dawned. And so what's interesting, I'm going to move ahead here. You'll see, if you're able to see the screen. If you're not, I'll talk it through, but I have the map up there that I've used before of the tribes. And Naphtali was to the north, and they were to the left, almost surrounding completely, just a little bit to the east, they were not, but everything from the bottom to the left of the Sea of Galilee was their land. And so this was very fertile land, but yet we also know in the north, they were taken first. And we also know that they did not fully cleanse out the land, but their land was fertile, and right there on the sea, they were fishermen. Interesting. And we also know that this is the area where Yeshua was born. So this area where he says in Isaiah, they were in distress in the past. He had humbled them, but yet there is a great light that comes out of Naphtali and that region. And that is our Messiah, Yeshua. And so when we put that together with Deuteronomy 33, he's satisfied with favor. He takes possession of the sea. And that idea of let loose that we read in the previous verse is shelach, which means send out. And the apostles were the sheliach. That would have been the Hebrew word for apostles, sheliach. And so they're being sent out. Are we going out with beautiful words? And what is the beautiful words? That beautiful words is the good news of what came out of that region. What came out of that area of Naphtali was Yeshua the Messiah. Are we going out to the seas? And remember, the seas and the fish, all of that have to do with the nations. And we are the fish. Are we, are we being fishers of men? We'll talk about that more with our constellation. So there's just so many beautiful pictures here that he gives us, that, and that idea of letting loose. So this is just kind of funny. Right before I came here, I was just rereading an article on Adar and Naphtali, and it gave, Jacob's blessing. And so in her little commentary after it, she said that they showed alacrity, which was a kind of a fervor to get out and move, right? So if you think of a deer, they're jumping and going out, and they're sure-footed on those mountain places, bounding out, right? Well, anybody who follows some of the maybe Musar teaching, this is the only place. So I read that word like last month when I was getting ready for last month's Adar, alacrity. I'm like, alacrity, I don't even know that word. Well, this weekend, the Torah portion, the Musar that was associated with it, which is just a character trait, is alacrity. And so we talked a lot about it in our Torah study this weekend. And so it's just one of those words that's kind of that fevered zeal, that excitement to move forward, and you're moving forward with purpose. And I just think, right, that is our job as disciples, as Sheliach, right? As apostles, we're sent out. We are to be going out, and we are to be sure-footed. So I just thought that was fun that just like an hour and a half ago, he brought that word right back to me. And I thought, oh, now I know the full meaning of what she was getting at here. It's kind of cool. Which then that brings us right to our constellation, which is Dagim, or Pisces. We know it in our modern time, and which is fishes, fish. There are two fish that are swimming in opposite directions, and they're secured by a band. So one is swimming kind of into the north, like the north center. So the constellations are on a circle. And so it's kind of going toward the inside, toward the North Star. And the other fish is going on the kind of the elliptical, the sun eclipse, like the sun's circle pattern. The Dagim is related to the word for multitude. So in Genesis 48:16, he says, let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. And that can be read as let them grow as fishes do increase. In Egypt, it's called Paikat Orion, or Pisces Hori, which I think is the Coptic word, Pisces Hori, which is, I think they're similar languages, but it both means the fish of him who comes. Again, when I read the meanings of these, no matter what language they're in, it just blows my mind. That I'm like, we've got Yeshua, our Messiah, all over it. The stars that are in it are, let me get my papers out here because I have some extra to read, are Al Samaka, the upheld, and Okada, united. So of course these fish are united. They're being upheld. The Dikhans, or the lower constellations, one of them is the band itself. So the fish are kind of one, and then the band itself is kind of a lower constellation itself. And the band is interesting because Aries, the ram, which we'll talk about next month, has his hoof on part of the band, and it crosses what they call Cetus, the sea monster, which is considered kind of the like an evil, or the Satan type that like we see like in the serpent and the snakes that are all in the star constellations. So it really, when I was looking at that, it made me kind of talk, who are we bound to, right? The ram is there, he's ready, he wants to let us loose, right? He wants to let us loose, but he wants us bound to him. keep that in mind, because that will also come up a little later. This, who are we bound to? Are we bound to him? Or are we bound to the world, which we know that Satan is in charge of? Are we bound to our feelings and our soul, like our that beastly nature? We don't want to be bound to the beast. We want to be bound to the Passover lamb and the victorious lamb. One of the other ones is Andromeda, which is it's a picture of a woman who's in chains. Andromeda is like man ruler. It's a chained woman. One of the fish that's going north, I believe, is heading into this woman in chains. And I thought, what a picture of when we are obedient to the Messiah and we're becoming those fishers of men by bringing the good news, we're bringing those beautiful words. We aid in breaking the chains for the bride. And the story of Andromeda is that she was bound up. And then there is a hero type, which, our Messiah came to rescue her. Let's see, I got a couple, there's some really cool names in. So some of the names, the weak, the afflicted, the chained. She was rescued by Perseus in the story, if you know some of your mythology. Pisces is was seen as a bad or an ill omen. The Assyrians and Babylonians wouldn't eat fish. So it's been the age of Pisces, but we're moving to that age of Aquarius. And remember, we talked about Aquarius last month, and that's the water pour. It's the bucket itself being the living water being poured out. So that just kind of made me think that as the fish, as the Pisces, so in the creation gospel, which I hope many of you are going to be starting creation gospel with us this week. One of the things that we talk about is that on that fifth day, we've got the fish and the birds running and going, and they're spreading that seed, and the seed is the word. It's that good news. It's those beautiful words. It's our Messiah, Yeshua. We are telling about him, right? And so that's this age that we're in. We are spreading that word. And as our earth shifts, as things tilt, I'm not an astronomer, so I don't know all about the physics and things like that of it, but I know it has happened. They've seen it happen over the ages. We're coming into that age of Aquarius. There's that song, and people think that that's a better time, I guess. But what I see it as, because knowing, the story of Messiah, it's that outpouring of the Spirit. We're coming into that time of the outpouring of the living water. We've been spreading and sowing those seeds wherever we go, being obedient. And now we're going to start seeing the fruition of that as we get closer to those end times and things get hard, and we got the squeezing, we got the birth pains, we have these things going on. There's going to be an outpouring of the Spirit, because we know that's how it happens. You can look through history, right? You can look through history and see that is how it's happened. That's how it happened in Egypt as they, are leaving and going out to the wilderness. There was that squeezing, the crying out. There was the rejoicing on the other side of the other side of the sea. And then they had to walk that out, and we had more squeezing, but we had more outpouring at Mount Sinai. And we see those throughout the times biblically, that it kind of was that the word was spread. And in fact, if you read in Nehemiah, we'll talk a little more about that, but that Nehemiah verse that we read, the joy of Yahweh is my strength, they rebuilt the walls, and Ezra brings out the law and begins to read it, and they're weeping. And if we want revival throughout the ages, so growing up in a Christian church, for me, how many revivals some of us have been to, depending on maybe where you're from. You go to a tent revival meeting, And maybe there is a revival. My husband, when he was a senior in high school, we live in a small town. His class had kind of a revival. There were people who got saved, and some of those have become pastors. Some of those, have continued on in their faith. But when you look at the Old Testament, and those are our examples, those are what is set for us. Revival came when Torah was read, and the people repented, and the people wanted Torah back. When they forgot Torah, and I think Charlie even alluded to this in her email, when Torah got forgotten, the people get stagnant, and things get muddy. We need that clarity that Torah brings us. And so I just think, this beautiful picture that he's given us, even in the sky, in the constellations. So they say that Aquarius could be happening, like we move into the age of Aquarius, like in 30, 40 years. When the book was written, it was like 50 or 60. About 50. So it's been a few years since the book that I've gotten this information from. So about 30 or 40 years, we should be moving into the age of Aquarius. So the world hates the church, right? The Pisces, the fish. I think of that ill omen that they thought. And the church had that picture of the fish. If anybody has, back in the 80s and 90s, ever went to Ichthus in Kentucky, Ichthus was that Greek word, meant fish, or it has something to do with like fish, but it was the symbol of the early Christians. I went there for several years, went to Ichthus, a big rock concert out in the middle of this field in Kentucky. So the church has long been connected to the idea of being fish and spreading the word. And the Andromeda galaxy is moving toward us. I don't know. That's just kind of interesting. There's like some really cool stuff about that. When I was reading about it, it's coming, it's moving very fast, but yet it would take like, I don't know, 1 million years to get here. So I think we'll be done by then. One of the other decans is Cepheus, which means crowned king. So in the sky, he is known to be holding a scepter. If you think back, well, we haven't studied it here yet, but you may have studied it on your own. Virgo is holding in her hand a seed and a branch. So Cepheus means crowned king, and he holds a scepter. So there, in that star is the royal branch or the king. So the scepter itself has a name, the royal branch or the king. And so it's like a callback to that picture of the Virgin, and she has the seed and a branch in her hand. The Egyptian name for Cepheus is Perkuhor, which means the one cometh to rule. Can't make that up. It's Yeshua. He is coming to rule. The stars, Aldermain, come quickly. Yes, Father, come quickly. And Al-Firk, Phirk, Redeemer. And Al-Ray, he who bruises or breaks. So again, the pictures that are in the sky, the messages he gives us just, I get blown away every time I read them for each month. Our letter is the Kuf. Fun little letter, looks like a P. That's what I always think when I see it. So it has this idea of a division, the horizon. The paleo was like the circle with a line through it, either vertical or horizontal, depending on the time frame. Connecting day and night, or the eye, the thread through the eye of the needle kind of thing. The word kuf in Hebrew, I guess, means a monkey. So they kind of gives you an image of a monkey. And if you think of monkey kind of jumping in circles, it can be like the back of the head, a circle, a cycle, a circuit. So there's those kind of pictures. So I think you kind of get where the cycle of sunrise and sunset, that's like my favorite, I think, image of Kuf is the sunrise sunset image. And it's that cycle of renewal, the cycle of it for us daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly, for our feast days, because there's hope in that. There's hope in joy comes with the morning. I just love that. I remember being up with babies, and for some reason, like at night, it's always worse, right? There's the fever or the toothaches or the earaches, and they're just like, they can't sleep, and you are tired, and you're just like, oh my gosh. And I would tell myself, joy comes with the morning, because it seems like as soon as dawn would break, it would just be this beautiful, like, I don't know, like a lifting. Like, I don't know if it's just a mental thing or psychosomatic, but it seems like the sun would come up, the babies would finally sleep, you could get a little rest, and then you could like start your day, and then sometimes start it all over again that night. But you had that rest, that respite. So the sunset allows us to review our day. I have an extra I in there, to be filled with gratitude. Even when it's hard, when you're going to bed at night and you've had a rough day, that is when you particularly need to find something to be grateful for. And so I know that can't always be easy, depending on our situations when we've gone through death and sickness, long-term sickness, just our situations with our spouses or families, all of those things. But that's where we have to dig. That's where the joy is our strength. And it's like, it opens up like a crevice to get through. It opens up the crevice to allow the Spirit to begin to work when we can like find something for gratitude, whatever it may be. So I just pray that for you guys. If you are struggling with that, I just pray that you guys are able to find that opening. The sunrise reminds us that joy comes with the morning, and there is hope in the cycle. The gates, the gates have become one of my favorites. And this month's gate is the prison gate. Now, if you can't see all the connections right now that we've already talked about, I really hope that you guys are beginning to like pick up on those when you're doing your own studies and seeing those throughout the month. So in Nehemiah 12:39, so we know, if I don't know who else on here right now, but just in case this is your first time stepping in with us, the gates, this comes from Nehemiah. And this can be a little ambiguous at times, because the gates are called different names. There were like, whether it was the gates in Jerusalem and the gates of like the town of David. So there is like some different ideas behind it. But in Nehemiah, he lays out going back to rebuild the walls, and he kind of lays out who repaired certain parts of the wall, certain gates, their names. Some didn't need any repair. Maybe they repaired certain things around it. There aren't really names associated with the prison gate, but there are, in a different section, it brings up gatekeepers. And so I have to say, so for this one, for all of you who don't know, I'm a correctional officer. I work at a prison. I work in a male prison in Illinois. And so reading the prison gate and some of the spiritual implications of the prison gate really, hit home. One of the articles that I read, he was the one who brought up, that idea of like, when you're a prisoner and your will is not your own. And I'm like, yep, you can say that. When I'm working, I'm the one who wakes you up for your food. We've been on COVID restriction for quite a while, in and out, but so it's even more restricted. If you can, imagine, there's no visits coming in right now. There's very limited activity and movement. No one right now is going to school. They have to do things like through the mail, like with our teachers that are on site. But you are told this is when you go to yard. This is when you go to chow. This is when you need to lock up. And if you don't listen to me, there's going to be issues, right? And I personally try to be nice about it because I understand being in a place where you have no control. I can't even imagine what that would be like when someone is telling you, you know, when you're trying to get a phone call. We have this issue all the time. You're trying to get a phone call, maybe someone in your family's sick. Now, I hear this story all the time. Some of them are true and some of them are not. So when someone comes up and says, I need to get a hold of my people, my mom's sick, and in the back of your mind, you're going, okay. And then in the back of your mind going, your mama is not sick, you know? So that you like, that's, you know, you hate that it goes there, but I try to like, okay, I'm going to give you an opportunity. Don't burn me. Right. But it's, again, it's just that whole idea of you have someone telling you what to do all the time. And so when we talked about who we're bound to, you know, Paul says, I'm a prisoner. I'm a bondservant. I have a couple of those in Ephesians down there. He says, I'm a prisoner of Yeshua. I'm a prisoner of the Lord. And that idea of being a bondservant, who are we, you know, nailed to? Who are we connected with in that band, in the fish? And so I just think of the visual of binding myself, because I may not always have control of everything around me. I have more control than what the inmates that I work with do. So I have more control, obviously, and freedoms, right? But I do have some things that are restrained. But I have, what I do have control over is my attitude, my responses, my actions. And that's where I can bring the kingdom in. I may be working in a housing unit I don't like to work in, and I can be angry and I can be frustrated and I can be snotty about it. Or I can, you know, do it with zeal. I can do it to the best, and I can bring light to wherever I'm at, even if it's not the place that I think I'm supposed to be. I'm there, so I am supposed to be there, and he will move me in the time. I need to be listening. I need to be in tune with him. So I don't know, there was a few things out of that, hopefully that you got, but Hosea 11:4, I just love this verse. I led them with cords of kindness, bonds of love. To them, I was like the one who lifts the little child to the cheek, and I bent down to feed them. And it kind of made me think of, again, of the constellation of the fishes with the band, you know, the cords of kindness, the bonds of love. That's the kind of prison I want to be in. I want to be in a prison where Yeshua is my correctional officer. He's my officer, because I have to tell you, I work with people that I would not want to be under their care. And so that's why I try to be a little more compassionate, I guess, than some. All right, Purim. Purim, we have actually the fast of Esther. It starts on the 13th, which actually would be like, for us, March 16th, it would be like that morning, depending on like when you sight the moon and things like that, but it would be the 13th. So it's a minor fast. So it's from just morning to evening. And then in the evening, you will get ready for the Rooted Cafe Purim party, and you will feast on all of your royal dainties. If you remember that from when we did, I think it was Benjamin, right? The royal dainties he was going to be feeding the kings. A light fast from sunrise to sunset. Not a fast of mourning, but a focus on the Holy One who achieves the impossible. And I love that. Valerie, that's in Valerie Moody's book. And when I read that, I was like, I just love that, because this isn't a morning fast like they do for Yom Kippur or like um, the ninth of Av. This is, a fast remembering that Esther fasted and prayed. And I think it was last month or the month before when we were talking about fasting. And Yeshua said that there are things that can only be done with fasting and praying. And so sometimes we have to get in there and dig. I don't know if you can see my little girl down here. She's looking at herself. It's so cute. Thought that was a cute one. And who do we see when we look in the mirror? Who do we see? Like she's laughing and giggling. She's got her little crown on. Is that who we see? Or do we see kind of that tired and worn out? I don't know who I am. I don't know what's left in me. What do I have to give? And I know sometimes we can feel that, especially as women, you're giving a lot, whether it's in your family and work, ministry, you kind of just feel pulled. And the Father just wants to let you know that you are his princess, and he just wants to lavish his love on you. The Esther is a story filled with intrigue. The layers that are present are so deep. We see a lesson on the hidden being revealed. We see Esther showing us how to be innocent as doves and wise as serpents, and how she handled the enemy. And I think we only get just a little bit of that just by reading the text in English. And that's where Rabbi Foreman's book, when he really goes into like all the different aspects of it in the Hebrew language, just really kind of like blows your mind, because Esther, like she did some maneuver in there and really worked that whole situation to save her people. This last year, I saw this Aleph, Dalet, and Resh. So that's the word Adar. And I was looking at it last year, and I had just started Brenda's Aleph Bet course. And so I was really kind of looking at like those kinds of things whenever it would come up. And I know Resh is the back of the head, can sometimes be associated, because it's the head of something, can be associated with like a king or a prince. And I thought the strength to walk through the door of the king. And of course, that picture, if you watch One Night with the king and she's opening the door, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's Purim. Adar is Purim. She has got that strength to walk through the door to the head of the house, the head of the person there, which was the king. And I just was like blown away when he showed me that last year. I'm like, that's what this month is. Do we have the strength to walk through the door to the king, our King Yeshua, and say, these are the promises you've given me. These are the things that have been laying. These are the dreams you gave me, and not my dreams, Father. Your dreams, the things you have for me. And you've prepared the soil. You've gotten me ready. We're ready to walk forward in those things. Other considerations are Madots, which are characteristics, or charity during Purim. They give gifts, usually like little candy gifts or food gifts to neighbors. They also maybe will find someone poor or needy, whether it's an organization or maybe a family that they might give that way. Joy, and then temperance, which is like a moderation or restraint. It could be in action, words, deeds, whatever. So again, when these months comes up, we look at those and say, which one is kind of calling to me? Which one is the Father saying this is something you need to work on? Is it that generous heart with charity? Am I having trouble finding that joy? Temperance right now, I would say temperance is mine right now. I'm having some issue with some restraint, and I need restraint in a couple different areas. Our sense is laughter, and ladies, I cannot like tell you, don't take this one for granted. Oh, laughter, good. Let's, like make a point to laugh every day. Simi did a great call. I think this was back in the summer in the sitting at the well. I think it's called Healing at the Well now, but there is a great one she did about just even using those cheek muscles, just smiling and and what that does to us. Put in some Christian comedy, find a really good movie that just makes you laugh all the time. Be with your family and do silly things. Just being with my kids sometimes it just is a crack up. So sometimes that's all I need around me is my family. But there's Chandra Pierce and Tim Hawkins. I've been watching the dry bar comedy or whatever, so it's fairly clean. I think most of them are Mormons, but just pretty good, clean fun most of the time. So like almost everything I've seen, nothing has been anything that I would not let my children watch, but just makes me laugh. A joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. So even if you're dealing with some physical ailments, maybe just take the time to really just get a good belly laugh in, which connects us then with our organ, which is the spleen. Spleen, worry is the emotion of the spleen. However that works, I don't know how, like the Yahweh created everything, and there's certain things that affect, our anxieties, our worries, all those kinds of different things can be kind of held in certain spots. And worry and anxiety tend to be caught up in our spleen. So you can read up on that, and maybe if you're having some like tummy, stomach pain issues, maybe that's something to kind of really begin to pray through. This connects to the letter Kuf, which I thought was interesting. I did not even know this till like last night, like at 1 o'clock in the morning when I'm doing some of these. It's a time to cry for deliverance, which connects us with Passover and Esther. And I thought that is so beautiful, because usually when we're worried, right, if we're worried about finances, if we're worried about sickness, crying out for deliverance. Right now we're getting ready to walk into Passover. They are crying for deliverance, and they are beginning to see it in the Bible story at this time, right? It's right before Passover. They've seen what the Father can do, with the creator of all things, how he's breaking down those idols in the Egyptian culture and things maybe that they've been holding on to also. And then that also connects us with Esther, that cry for deliverance, that she fasted and prayed and cried out for her people. And so I imagine when that decree went out, which also, again, Passover and Esther are connected. So the lots were cast on the 13th of Nisan, or Aviv, the first month, which would have been during Passover, right at the beginning of Passover. And the time was set for Adar the following year. So imagine a whole year of knowing they got the word out, right? So immediately they hear the word starts going out and they're hearing that we can be destroyed. What are we going to do? And them crying out from their homes for deliverance. And so this may be a time that you need to do that. And so that cry for deliverance, I saw in two different places. One is Dr. Alfonso Manzo is a naturopath, and he has an Aleph Tav body system book. And in the letter Kuf, he just put, it was right there. I haven't really read it. It's very hard to understand because it's very detailed, but it says a cry for deliverance. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And then I have another book by Rabbin Deborah Brandt. She's from the Chicago area. She has a book on the Psalm 119, and in the letter Kuf, it says a cry for deliverance. And I thought, somewhere the sages must know something about that. I didn't see it other places, but I saw it there. So, so that again, our letter for the month has that connection to both Passover and Esther. So I just thought that was really cool. Here's our spiritual warfare, ladies. This is a season for decrees made against you, just like in Esther, to be broken. Generational curses, because that was some generational stuff going on there with Esther and Haman. It's time for your enemies to reap the plots they made against you. Your true identity in Messiah will have to be revealed to uh, win the fight against the enemy. What mask are we hiding behind? I just thought the idea of mask was very interesting, and I know they dress up and do masks for Purim. And I thought the difference in that hidden being revealed. So sometimes we're hiding behind that mask because of insecurity. But then I thought of other places that use mask, and I thought of like Mardi Gras. And I don't know all the stuff behind Mardi Gras, but I do know that some of the stuff that's behind that is that so they can do illicit things and not be known, the masquerade balls and things like that. So how interesting that we may have on a mask now because we need to be, sometimes we kind of need to be hidden for a moment, right? Just like Esther. Esther had to be hidden for a moment. She could not be Hadassah. She had to be Esther, but then it was revealed. Sometimes it's just our own doubts and our insecurities. And so there's those masks that we then have a time to take off and reveal who we are and walk in that strength, walk in who he made us. But then you've got those who wear masks like Haman, right? That they have nefarious things on their mind, so to speak. Whether, it would be deception, whether it would be a way to get at you another way. I don't know. Like, I think you see what I'm getting at here. There's just nefarious things going on, and they have to have a mask on so you don't see it. And I think we see that sometimes in our world around us right now. So just praying for those masks. We want our mask to come down so that we can walk in who we are. And we want their mask to come down so we can see the enemy for who they really are. So be praying that ladies. Trading your sorrows for joy, ashes for beauty, chains for freedom. It may take time of fasting and prayer, especially in community. You don't have to do it alone. The ground we've been cultivating all winter, it's now the time to begin budding and protect those buds. We have to walk in obedience, even when we don't feel it. That's something that's been coming up a lot lately, just in my circles. And this isn't anything new. Like, I don't feel like reading the Bible. And remember, like, we had gone through that. I don't feel like reading the Bible, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to make myself do it. But now there's kind of maybe in this new generation of, I don't feel it. And if I do it, then is it really sincere? So maybe I shouldn't do it until I feel it. You've got those kind of circles. So we have to walk out in obedience to be able to understand. Do you think Esther knew what was going to come of all that she did? But she just walked in obedience and did what she was supposed to do. And it wasn't until toward the end of that time she began to see why she was there, why she was brought to the king, why she was chosen. So sometimes we just have to walk in obedience when we don't feel it, and he will bring the understanding. Our weapon of choice this month is joy. Don't take that for granted. And finally, we are packing our bags. The dark months are coming to an end. The plagues are almost complete. We've seen the Holy One of Israel do some amazing things. Transition can be hard, even when it's what we prayed for. But we are hinds being let loose, like Naphtali, and he is calling us out in an orderly fashion by our tribe, but not in chaos. Our true identity as a follower of Yeshua can be unmasked, and we can walk in the strength. We have the hope in the cycles that he has given us, that we are renewed. We are busting out of that prison gate, breaking bonds, and we are singing all the way. That testimony will attract others who will follow us out of Egypt or stand with us against evil. So, ladies, this is my prayer over you, that you would just walk in it and declare it for this month of Adar and Adar 2, as we get ready to walk into Passover and the spring feast, when we begin our feast cycle. Just get your heart ready. Be ready for whatever he has, because he's got amazing things for you guys. And I'm just so looking forward to hearing your testimony out of that. So let's see, I got my stop share. All right, ladies, we've got some time here. If anybody has anything they want to, you can just unmute yourself, and anything you want to add, or anything about the last couple months, or anything going in.
Hey, Erica, it's Jen Doobie.
Hi, Jen.
This was my first time on one of these calls, and every month I want to do it, but for whatever reason, the schedule, the timing, and tonight I just was like, you need to get on this call. And I just want to tell you that I'm very encouraged, because I don't know if most people feel this, but the last few months have been really hard, and we know the darkness, we understand the season, December, January, and I don't really understand them from the new moon, but we just know this, it's just a time of darkness and just pagan holidays and different things. So many of us feel so, I don't know, just like overwhelmed. And I think we can feel really discouraged. And I know Robin Bales and I have been chatting every day and just having these conversations of the heaviness. And we kept saying it has to change. It has to change. Like we feel a shift coming, and we just had no idea. Then I listened to this call about the new moon, and we think of the season of what it means. And I know it's coming up on Purim, but just thinking about Esther and her story, and the time when the people who are against us, or the seeds that have been planted, like this is a time of reaping and harvesting, and finding our identity. And I think a lot of us are really just, we're looking for that in depth. Not that we don't already have it to some degree, but I just hear this from women in the portion all the time these last 2 months, and just thinking of even all the prayer requests that have been out there. And so I'm feeling so encouraged and excited about what the Holy One has for me this month now. And I can't wait for the sighting of the new moon, and just to think about how a shift is coming, and we feel it, but we just can't describe it, and we don't know what it is. So this just made perfect sense. I just really feel like it was anointed, this call, and that I was on here for a reason. So I really just wanted to pop on and say thank you for being such an encouragement to me tonight. You are an answer to prayer.
Awesome, Jen. You were right where you were supposed to be at the right time.
Amen, sister. I feel that.
There's with Passover coming up, and we see this at Tabernacles too. Sometimes that identity is going to be a thing that keeps coming up for a couple of different reasons. Identity and authority. Those, as we're walking through the next couple months, just be aware it's things to pray into, not things like, oh my gosh, it's going to be like, my authority is going to be challenged, this and that, or my identity, da, da, da. But these things come up, and may not always be our identity, but it may be the identity of Messiah, as in, why do you celebrate Passover and not Easter? Why do you, so during feast times is really kind of a high time, because people notice it. Like you can kind of get away with, part of the year, like, I haven't seen so-and-so on a Saturday for a while, or, they don't come out on Friday night anymore, things like that. But when it gets, to Passover, and you're getting ready, and, I'm sorry, I can't have that Subway sandwich with you, kind of thing, like, thanks for bringing me a Subway, but I can't eat it because I'm not eating, leavened bread. And like, then it becomes, what are you talking about? And you are crazy. But those are the times where it kind of ramps up a little bit. So even though we're in a shift, it's time to just be prepared. We're going to have questions. People are going to want to know. People are going to challenge. They're going to challenge. And it may feel like a challenge, like to us, but remember, this challenge is to the Father, to the Creator, and He's big enough to handle it. Because they may be challenging it just because we're doing it, but the challenge is really to Him. Like, hey, if they want to challenge Him, go ahead, because He would love for you to challenge and question Him. Give Him those opportunities to go search it out and challenge what he has to say. But just know that it's just kind of one of those things that tends to happen during, especially the, you know, Passover and Tabernacle week, those longer feast weeks. There's challenges take place, but it's okay. The Father's ready for them, and He gets us ready.
So if no one else has anything, I'm going to hop back in for a second. So you said something about, things that are hidden are going to be revealed. And I'm sorry if I missed it. I was partly multitasking during part of the call. Is this related to us in particular, or do you feel like this could be something more related to even, like a greater awakening of people? Because I know that for many of us, we have been planting seeds, and we have been, sowing into family members and loved ones and friends from church and all of that.
Mhm.
So what can you just explain, if I missed it, a little bit about the hidden that's going to be revealed? And I love that, because that's Esther's whole story. And of course, I'm organizing the Purim event. So ladies, if you're not registered, I'm shameless plug to do that and get the oils, and it's going to be fabulous. But is this hidden? Do you think it's for those in covenant, or is it those that maybe are still have some scales on and are blinded by things, or maybe both?
Yes. As Dr. Alvine will tell you, I think it's all of those. It's us discovering our identity, maybe things that we've got masked, like maybe not even identity so much stuff, but just things that we have masked that we're still trying to figure out. It may be, like you said, things revealed to those people we've been praying for. This is a good time to pray that specific prayer that reveal those things that you've hidden. Like our Jewish brothers and sisters, continue to pray that for them. And I think it's a time that nefarious activities, shenanigans, as Charlie put over there, nefarious shenanigans will also be revealed. And so, it covers the gamut, I think, this whole idea, because we saw that in both places. In Esther, we saw her discovering, her revealing her identity. We saw Haman's nefarious activities being revealed, right? He wasn't he was forthcoming. You can say the king was kind of whatever he was, easily malleable to what Haman had to say. But yeah, so I think it covers the gamut of the hidden being revealed. It's just whatever the situation calls for.
Erica.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to say something to Jen. I mean, to anybody else who's thinking the same thing. I think of it as, in Esther's situation, it was a huge, she found herself in a huge situation, right? And she didn't know how this was going to turn out. Like it was like those plans were were revealed. They were unveiled. And, she was faced with a huge responsibility of doing something, right? She didn't know how it was going to turn out. She just trusted. And I think of it on a personal note, like when we are praying for certain things in our lives, sometimes we're praying for one thing, and but we haven't really articulated the whole thing. Yahweh knows those things that we're praying for, and He knows the outcome of them. And so we may not always know exactly, like we may be zoning in on just one thing, and maybe there's like 3 things attached to this prayer, and Yahweh, the Father, will reveal them. And He brings them. He brings us the awareness that when we go to Him and pray, though we may not know exactly the plan, we may not know exactly the outcome, we may not know exactly even what we've been praying for, how it will affect others or in other places in our life, those things will be revealed. And then, then that comes the situation for joy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because then we're going to be like just shouting with what we're going to be just so giddy, as Erica said, with the realization that, I asked for this, and this is what Yahweh gave us. This is what he did, right? I asked for this, help in this area of my life, and this is how it affected, my husband, my children, workplace, wherever it is. We just don't know, but he's going to reveal those things in ways that we never expected, So I would just encourage you, like Jen, if you, I don't know if you've been able to see any of the last two of the winter month studies on the new moon, but I would encourage you to go back and look at them, because I think besides it, us, there's things that we're working on, but it's also a season for us to rest in those things that we've been praying for through the harvest of the spring seasons, right? And then the Father gives us that time in the winter to rest. It's like he says, you rest, like we still have a part in this, right? We still want to keep going forward. We still want to keep growing, but he's giving that time of rest. And it's actually a pretty peaceful place to be in the midst of chaos, in the midst of things going on in our life. He, just like the supernatural shalom that he gives us at that time, it's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, I think that we can all just relate to, personal things going on in our life. And yet when we rest in him, when we just feel assured, it's like giving ourselves permission to relax. It's giving ourselves permission to put aside the worry and the anxiety, right? Because if we can do that, those are the things that stop the depression, right? That comes in. And so I just would encourage you to go back and look at those places, because really winter, I have really grown. I'm a summer girl. I love the sun, but this is the first time in my life that I can say I really appreciated these winter months, because this past month I purposed to intentionally enjoy the winter, even that cold that I just can't stand. It makes you slow down. And so if we can slow down, then the Father speaks to us in ways that are so encouraging. It just revitalizes your spirit in those times of just resting in him.
Rhonda brings up an important idea in that not seeing 1 month as 1 month and not connected to the rest of the cycle, and really seeing that walked out and how one leads to the other. And that doesn't mean that if we pick up, and if we've never studied the months and we pick up, but when you begin to see it as the whole and see those things play out like she's talking about, you can, it's like being in tune with your body. Okay. So we're all females here. So if you've ever used natural family planning, and so, when your body is going through certain cycles, when your body's ovulating, when your body's getting ready for menstruation, all of those things, when you become in tune, when I was 20, I don't no clue. I knew when menstruation hit because, some cramps and here it comes. But as far as learning my ovulation cycles, it's so funny how when you become in tune to your body, when I began practicing some breathing stuff, and I remember the one time the teacher, and I don't know how everybody I'm not promoting yoga if you're not but we weren't a chanter or whatever. We were stretching stuff and we were just breathing. And I remember her saying when you breathe, pull that breath to if you have a sore shoulder or sore that, I'm like, how on earth do you do that? Well, you get me a month later, and if I am breathing and I have an issue in my lower back, I can feel that energy of my breath going to that spot. And it's like that with the months. I think his cycle with his calendar, when you're in tune with it, you begin to see how it flows. I love how Christine Vallis puts it, I think, in her Appointed Times book. the prophetic, you begin to see all that. That's stuff I never paid attention to. I never saw. So things were happening around me, but I wasn't engaged. So now we become engaged with our prayer, engaged with our thoughts, engaged with our mouth, engaged with our actions.
Engage with the emotions going on, the things that are going
Mhm.
on within, those in our homes and, workplaces or whatever. It's almost like before, I'll just speak for myself. Before I started learning about new moon, I feel like I walked around clueless, right? And then I started paying attention to the themes and spiritual warfare, the aspects and the organs and the sense of the months. And it took maybe, I don't know, a couple months just to like start really paying attention. But I kept like just rereading them, rereading through the material a couple times during the month. And then you start making these connections and you're like, I can't even make this up. Nobody can make this up. Like, that it is the Father's hand. It's like he's opening your eyes to see into his realm, like the spiritual place that he wants us to be in anyways. And now it's like he opens your eyes to the help and the support that he's ready to give you in those months. Right. And then the hope, the tikva that comes with, okay, next month is going to be better because next month's themes are going to be different. And we're like, hallelujah, this month is going to be over if it was a tough one for you. Right. But you can still rejoice and be mindful of praying in those places for others who are still in them.
Good thought. Yes. Caitlin, did you have something? You popped up there on your.
I was just thinking about, sorry, never mind. I had just had a thought about, in the winter months, I'm in, the Northeast up in New York. So our winters last from sometimes like mid-November all the way till like the end of March, because we'll still have flurries through that time. And up here in New York and Vermont, a lot of people will have maple trees, and you'll see in certain areas where they're tapping them, and it's normally at the end of January or February at a certain temperature and a certain time, and you wouldn't realize or be super aware of exactly those specific trees because, for the most part, they're not super, budding, or they're not, they're harder to identify unless you study them. And in a prayer meeting, it was brought up that during that time, during that specific season in the winter, when it comes time, I guess, to harvest the maple, the syrup from them, it's a long process. And a lot of the time, from what I've heard from somebody that locally does this, first you're just getting kind of a watery substance, and you have to, when you initially tap it, you're told that you have to be very, very patient because it's very slow. And I think sometimes you can even keep it out for over a day if you're patient enough and you're keeping an eye on it. But you have to just be extremely aware and just very patient. But then once you do that, you bring it in and then you process it and you put it on the stove. And then eventually after that refining process over time, then you can get a not as large of an amount as you think, but you get a very rich syrup that has multiple uses. And I just thought that it's number one, it's incredible how it happens in a very cold season. And just how the Lord has really been drawing me to the thought that, and bouncing off of what Rhonda had said, it's just a time where God really wants us to slow down
Mhm.
and to allow him to minister, because the richness that he can draw out of us is great.
Right.
Yeah.
And that just that idea of we talked about maple syrup during Shabbat for our last one. I don't know if I did it in this class, but at our assembly, but that idea that it takes that freezing, thawing, and yeah, like you said, that patience and things that we have to kind of hold on for to get the good stuff, because maple syrup is like one of my favorite things in the world.
Yeah. It takes patience from what I've heard. So, but it's rich and beautiful if you take that time to slow down. And I feel like sometimes that can be, at least for me, it's very hard
Mhm.
to be patient.
Yep.
But thank you.
His creation teaches so many beautiful things.
Amen.
Thank you, ladies. Ladies, I'm going to have to hop off here. My library is about to close. That's where I get the good internet. So to make sure I can get on with you guys. If you have any questions, any more comments, anything, put them on the Slack page, or you can email me, erica.therootedcafe. And so I just appreciate so much you guys being here, and just again praying that blessing that you begin to see his movement in the months and in the cycles of the year. And so I just pray you have an awesome Purim if you're celebrating, and getting ready for the new year. And I'm excited. We'll finally be on the same schedule. So so it'll be nice to be walking in it really with you. I feel like I've been at feet in a couple of different calendars this year. So I'm just going to leave you out with, Father, I just praise you and thank you. You are awesome, and you are amazing in the way that you speak to us and teach us. And I pray a blessing over the ladies here tonight that were here. I pray for those who are struggling, those who are got things that are on their mind tonight. I just pray that you would supernaturally intercede with them tonight. Give them your shalom that they need. Pray for those who will hear this at later date, Father. I just ask that you speak to them through the messages you have of your month, Father. I just love you and praise you and thank you. Hallelujah and amen.